Hi, everybody. Welcome to Independent Socialists versus the Two-Party System. We're gonna give it one more minute. Hello. While we wait, I would love to hear where everybody is calling in from. You can go ahead and use the chat. What city are you in? Good to see everybody. Shout out Ohio. Let's see. Shout out Cape Cod, Massachusetts, the Bay Area, Austin, Texas, Pennsylvania, Atlanta. We have the whole country represented. Let's go. All right. Los Angeles. Okay. Well, I think we can go ahead and get started. I'll introduce myself. Hey, everybody. My name is Jimena. I'm a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I'm the campaign manager for the Joe Tache for Senate campaign. And I'm so excited to be chairing tonight's discussion with such incredible organizers and candidates. It's clear that people all across the country are sick and tired of the status quo. Our panelists tonight are seizing the moment and leading the charge against the two-party system. They're challenging billionaire control of the electoral arena. And the energy behind these independent socialist campaigns has grown so much that Joe, who is running for US Senate representing Massachusetts, has been invited to participate in the general election debate this fall against a sitting member of Congress, either Senator Ed Markey or Representative Seth Moulton, depending on who wins their primary. And this is a historic opportunity for our socialist movement, not just in Massachusetts, but nationwide. And now, all that's standing between us and having that reality of a representative of our socialist movement going toe to toe with the billionaire-backed parties is the $70,000 that we need to raise by August 28th. That 70,000 gets us to the network's fundraising minimum. So I want to ask y'all, how much can we chip away at that obstacle tonight? If you haven't donated yet, or even if you already have, you can go to Tache 4MA, that's TACHE, the number 4, MA.com/donate. Um, our friend John is gonna put that in the chat for everyone to have access to. That's how we can get our movement on that stage. That's how we can directly challenge the billionaire narrative. So yes, that link is now in the chat. And without further ado, I'm going to ask our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves. Claudia, we can start with you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Jimena. I'm so excited to be here tonight. Well, my name is Claudia de la Cruz, and I was a presidential candidate for 2024 with the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and I am an organizer, an educator, a theologian, and a mom. And just excited to be here in conversation with my comrades, my friends, folks that have been giving their all for the people for a long, long time.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Greg, we can go to you.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here today with these great comrades that I am just blessed to be around. So, my name is Greg Levy. I am an organizer with the Party for Socialism and Liberation in the great state of Ohio. We're about to take socialism to Ohio. And I am the director of the Robeson Singers, which is Cleveland's revolutionary gospel choir. Um, we just out here organizing, doing what we can. So excited to add to the cause to get Joe on that stage. I can't wait to see Joe eviscerate the capitalists.
Absolutely. Andre.
What's going on, y'all? This is Andre. I am a husband, a father, an educator, an organizer with the PSL, and a proud independent socialist candidate for New York's 15th congressional district in the Bronx. I am super, super excited to be out here with you all. I think socialism is really hot right now, and I'm so glad to be a part of the movement that is giving it not only form but substance in the wonderful campaigns that we're running around the country. So super happy to be here, and I can't wait to get into this discussion because who better to speak about what socialism is than people actually making socialism in real time? And I really look forward to seeing Joe on that stage. I want to throw another log on his fire so that he can blaze up the place.
Let's go. And last but not least, Joe.
Hey everybody, my name is Joe Tache. I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm a youth worker, an educator, community organizer, and candidate for U.S. Senate in Massachusetts with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I've been an organizer with PSL since 2018, so I was very proud of the campaign we were able to run in 2024 with Claudia at the top of the ticket, and very proud to be walking in those footsteps and running alongside Greg and Andre at a time when Congress is failing, if not outright attacking working people all across the country, for us to be able to put forward a message and build a movement that is independent of those blood-sucking two-party systems is really exciting for me. So I'm excited to talk more about the movement we're building and happy to see everybody here today.
Thank you all so much. So we're going to get started with our discussion. We have a few questions here, but please, folks, if you're able to use the Q&A function, you can also ask the panelists your questions, and hopefully we can get to those. So we'll get started. Our first question is, what does it mean to fight for socialism? How does running for office help achieve that?
Is me? I'm up first. Yeah, y'all
Yeah,
go.
Andre, sure, go for it.
Y'all.
Y'all can jump in.
Oh, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So fighting for socialism is really the most essential thing that we can be doing at the moment. Um, we are in a moment where the two choices that are laid out in front of the peoples of this country, but more broadly, the people of the world, is either we move forward to socialism or we descend along the path to barbarism, which we are seeing on a daily basis in full display. Trump's agenda has been to claw back all of the reforms that people's movements have fought for, whether we're talking about the indigenous people, we're talking about the movements for people with different abilities, LGBTQ rights, the civil rights revolution. All human rights struggle are under threat right now. And the only system, the only structure, the only logical and effective response to that is socialism. And the people want that. The people recognize that. They see their problems as affordability. They see their problems as the cost of living. But we as socialists have the unique opportunity and the esteemed privilege of connecting all of those separate movements for labor and reproductive rights. All of those things are rooted in the system of capitalism. And only through replacing capitalism with socialism can we make that a real possibility for dignity for all people. So running in these elections gives us a unique opportunity to reach people who are activated, who are ready for change, but lack the material and structural means to produce those changes. We have to get people into organization, and we have to be very clear about what socialism is, starting first with understanding that our socialism is rooted in our commitment to the international struggle against imperialism. That is the root and the heart. So we have to put that in the front of how we talk to our people and welcome them back into the historical struggles that all of our communities have engaged in throughout the history. So yeah, socialism, this is why we are in this race to bring people back to their humanity.
Well, I'd add, I mean, it's always hard to go after Andre. Um, I'll just name that. But I think it's important for us to understand and share with folks in our communities that the only viable solution for our existence is socialism. I mean, we know what the crimes of capitalism are, and I say we very intentionally because I feel that working class people feel it in their bones and their guts and their bodies. When folks are, underpaid and overworked, when folks are living next to these data centers that are literally poisoning the space in which they are living and their families are living, when millions of people don't have access to healthcare, where people are struggling and trying to figure out whether they should pay their, medical bills, their student loan, or their rent. Like they know exactly what capitalism is. They feel it, they know it. They might not necessarily have a language for it, but they know that the systems and the structures are killing them. And socialism is humanism. Socialism is actually centering human beings and our needs and the needs of the planet over profit. And I think anyone who is understanding and again feels in their bones what capitalism does to us, they definitely are seeking an alternative. I mean, to say that 62% of young people are are have a favorable outlook on what socialism is telling us the signs of the moment. And I think in many ways, you mentioned earlier that this is a call to raise $70,000. Now, let's think about how much of a dollar democracy we are living in, that in order to put our candidate that actually is bringing forth the interests and the needs of the people, we need to raise $70,000 to debate billionaires. That is outrageous. I mean, it speaks to what their agenda is. In order to be heard, you need to be a billionaire. This is the capitalist system in which we live. And so for us, running these elections is precisely doing what we're doing tonight. It is bringing to light the hypocrisy of the so-called democracy of this country. We are letting people know in a moment where people in the United States are engaged in the type of politics that we're taught that we should be engaged in, was only electoral politics, that is not the only way for us to change society. That actually we need an independent movement of working class people, and we need independent organizations that will fight for us. That fighting or trying to reform the current system is not going to happen because we've tried this before and it's never worked. And so for us, running in electoral politics as socialists is actually meeting these billionaires and their agenda in the same platform and space that they are engaging our people with their lies and revealing a lot of what our people already feel in their bones, that these career politicians don't care about us. And so if they don't care about us, we need to be able to move towards spaces where we are cared for and where we play a central role. And that is a socialist movement.
Yeah, thank you, Andre and Claudia, so much. Yep. Going off of what you just said, Claudia, we also have a question in our Q&A, maybe for Greg and for Joe, who haven't gotten to answer yet. Can you describe why it's so important to run as an independent socialist instead of as a Democrat? Why are you all running independently? Why are you running with the PSL?
Let me get in there first before Joe sets the whole thing on fire. But I love this question. Why do we not run? Why don't we run as Democrats? And it's a very simple answer, and that's because we are not Democrats. And so, like, we have to explore, what does that mean? I mean, what does it mean to be a Democrat or a Republican? It seems to me that to be a Democrat, you have to go part and parcel with imperialism. You have to live in a time of genocide and find a way to do the mental gymnastics to ignore that. You have to see workers being kidnapped in the middle of the street, and you have to find a way to keep moving on with your day and not address it fully and frontally. We aren't Democrats. We're socialists, and we have an analysis of the situation. And we realize that workers are disempowered under this system, and we need a new system that puts workers in power. I like what Fred Hampton said. Fred Hampton said, if you're afraid of socialism, you're afraid of yourself. Because we deserve a system that is for workers, by workers, and we can do it. There's nothing wrong with us. There's something wrong with the billionaires. So as a socialist, we can actually represent working people. We can represent the interests of working people, and we don't have to do the mental gymnastics that are necessary to ignore every important thing that's happening on the world stage. We don't have to ignore what's happening in Iran. We don't have to ignore what's happening in Cuba. We can speak to it, and we can speak to it in real time because we are not beholden to the ruling class. And with that, I'll let Joe clean it up.
100%. I agree with everything you said, Greg. And yeah, if I could just add on a little bit, for people who know me, I like to speak in a little bit of an arc. So it may not be clear exactly why I'm starting how I'm starting, but I always try to land the plane. So I was at a picket this morning with nurses at Boston Medical Center, huge hospital in Boston. And BMC has the lowest paid healthcare workers in the city. And it's not just a BMC issue because just a few weeks ago, nurses at Mass General Brigham, which is the biggest hospital in the entire state, those nurses were on strike. And the CEO of Mass General Brigham gave herself a 40% pay raise. But the hospital can't be bothered to treat its workers with basic dignity and respect. And these healthcare workers, nurses and otherwise, are really on the front lines of what is a life and death struggle in this country, which is the struggle for the right to healthcare, the right to our own health. 3 million people in the last half a year have already lost their health insurance because of Congress's cuts to the Affordable Care Act. There's another at least 10 million people who are projected to lose their insurance because of cuts to Medicaid from Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill. And as more people lose their insurance, that means more people are going to the emergency room for primary care because they can't go to the doctor. That's putting more of a burden on hospital workers who are already underpaid and overworked. And then as more people are going to the ER, that's more people who are racking up medical debt, which is already the leading cause of bankruptcy in this country, which is unconscionable. And yes, these things are happening because the Republican Party is on a warpath. But if you look at the not too distant history of our country, the Democrats paved that road for the Republicans. In 2009, after Barack Obama was elected, the Democrats had a supermajority in Congress. They controlled the House of Representatives, they controlled the Senate, and they controlled the White House, meaning that they could have done whatever they wanted. And actually, they did do whatever they want. And that wasn't passing universal health care. It was passing the so-called Affordable Care Act. And they didn't pass universal health care, even though it was popular, even though it's something that everybody in this country needs, because the Democratic Party is a capitalist party. And that means fundamentally, first and foremost, they protect the interests of the capitalists, of the billionaires who are running our society. And so for them, for the Democrats in 2009, it was more important to preserve the health insurance industry and the pharmaceutical industry's right to profit than it was to enshrine our right to universal health care. And because they weren't willing to make our healthcare system people-driven instead of profit-driven, that health system has continued to decay. And the Republicans now are gutting a weak and decayed system, but the Democrats allowed it to continue to decay. And we can't let them off the hook for that. And if you look at any issue, it's the same story. The cost of housing and food and childcare, comprehensive immigration reform, student debt cancellation, climate change. The Democratic Party on all these issues is a party of broken promises. They make promises to us, to the working class, because they need working class voters to win elections, yes. But the Democratic Party as an institution is not the same thing as its voters. It is an institution into itself. It's an institution that is run by rich elites who organize their party to do the bidding of even richer elites. And if you look at, again, just the last 10 years, Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020 was this incredibly popular politician who was running these electric campaigns to become the Democratic nominee for president. And he was crushed by his own party. On the morning that Zohran Mamdani first went to DC to meet with Donald Trump after he was elected, the House of Representatives passed a resolution condemning the horrors of socialism, and 86 Democrats voted in favor of that resolution, including Seth Moulton, who I'm running against in this race. So on the morning that their most popular and talented politician in a generation was going into battle with who they claimed is the greatest enemy, Donald Trump, they decided it was the most important thing on that day to condemn that politician in Zohran Mamdani and the ideas that he represents, because they are fundamentally a capitalist party. And workers, working class people, we deserve our own party. And in fact, building our own party is the only way that we're going to be capable of wresting power from the hands of these billionaires. I think it's very important to know we use the line independent socialists versus the two-party system because we are independent from the two-party system, but I'm not an independent, capital I. I'm a proud member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, right? And if I was just an independent, I would have no chance on getting on the ballot in Massachusetts and collecting 20,000 signatures in 15 days. I would have no chance of collecting $250,000 of donations to have the chance of getting on that debate stage. We only have a chance, our movement only has a chance to continue to build step by step because we're building our own party that is independent of the two-party system, that is independent of the capitalist class. And we're a party of everyday people, of teachers, of healthcare providers, of students, warehouse workers, software engineers, people of all different backgrounds, but ultimately workers, the worker people who make society run. And we are fighting as a party for a reality where workers don't just make society run, but where workers actually have the political power to run society.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. We're talking about this opportunity that we have for one of our candidates, one of the members of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, to get on that debate stage to debate a sitting member of the U.S. Congress. I want to ask why has it been such an uphill battle? Why is it still such an uphill battle to get to this point? Why is this such a historic occasion? Why have third party candidates, socialist candidates been excluded from that level of visibility?
Whoa, I don't want to have to go after that man. I'm glad I don't have to debate him. So just to address, I just wanted to double back on what Joe just talked about. I'm calling in from Cleveland, which is where Malcolm first had his ballot in the bullet speech. He first spoke it right here in Cleveland. And in that, he has such a brilliant analysis. He talked about the foxes and the wolves. And he talked about like the fact that they're playing a game with the fortunes and the aspirations of working people. We have to understand that none of this is random. The game, the circus that they put in front of our people, the way that they're playing in our faces, when they have no intention on actually addressing the interests of the American people, they don't care about workers. And so when we talk about why they make it so difficult in all of these places for third parties to emerge, it's because they know that what's needed for the working class to have its proper place is to have organized power. Just like Joe just talked about, we're here with the Party for Socialism and Liberation because we know that workers need a party. Malcolm said, we're not outnumbered, we're out organized. And we need to organize together for our own interests. And that's the very reason why in every state and all the localities all over this country, they find out new and creative ways to make it as difficult as possible for workers to be represented in local elected in electoral politics. And that's because they know that it's a tool that brings the possibility of worker organization to the fore, which is exactly why we need Joe on that stage, because Joe isn't an individual that's out here going for his own careerist aspiration. He is a part of a collective struggle to build independent working class power with revolutionary intentions, which is exactly what we need in this time. Workers are suffering. Here in Ohio, workers are, we know exactly what it is. All the billionaires abandoned us long ago. And we know that we have to band together. And that's the same all over this country. And that's the reason why they make it so damn hard for us to get to the table and to be able to just speak our piece. And so we really need people to step up and take advantage of this opportunity that we're bringing. And I just can't wait to see what Joe will do in that situation. But with that, I'll pass it to Joe.
Can I jump in? Just no, I think, I agree completely with everything that Greg just mentioned. I think it's important to say that they put all the obstacles possible because they fear us. Like, I think in no way, shape, or form can we think that we're small, because we're not. We're not a niche group of people. And because we have a program that speaks to the need of the people, if we were to get on any of the mainstream stages speaking what we speak, people will connect. And that is their biggest fear. People will have questions about how we get there, but they will definitely not question why we want to, cut the military budget. They will not have questions as to why we want to save the planet and not have, the level of destruction that the military, that the data centers, and all these different corporations cost to the places in which people live. They will have no questions when it comes to, let's get rid of health insurance companies, because ultimately people should have access to healthcare. I mean, these are things that are so normal. These are things that are so, commonsensical. Like, it makes sense in the very gut of people. And so I don't know, Joe mentions Bernie Sanders. When Bernie Sanders spoke about universal healthcare, people immediately started looking into what socialism was, because people needed. And so it's not that, it's nothing else but fear. It's nothing else but fear. Historically, if we think about Eugene Debs, this was a man in prison and he got a million votes. This is a man in prison, right? And I think it's important for us to think about how much opportunity crises brings. Like, the fact that we are living historic moments of oppression means that people are in a historic and pivotal point of shifting their ideas, shifting their politics, and that has always been a threat. It's always been a threat to the capitalist system. And that is the reason also why we're seeing so much repression of, socialist organizations, so much persecution of activists and organizers that may not even claim to be socialist, because people are waking up to the understanding that the current system, that the capitalist system in which we live is killing us. Literally killing us. And therefore, we need to build alternatives. And again, I think it's amazing that we have this huge opportunity to have Joe go toe to toe with the billionaire agenda, because it's not one person. He's not going to be going toe to toe with one person. He's going to debate the billionaire agenda with the people's agenda at hand. And he is a representative not only of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, although we are party members. He is an organizer. He's a young person that has been feeling and living and working with communities that need their voices heard in a mainstream platform. And so I am just excited to see that debate, because I know we will get there. And I can't wait to see you rip apart the billionaire agenda.
No doubt. Should I jump in?
I was
Cool.
going to try to
Well,
hop on for 20 seconds,
oh
but
no,
I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah,
let you.
no, you go, please.
I wanted to just borrow another analogy from good brother El Haj Malik El Shabazz, who's right over my shoulder there. When he says, if you give people the option between dirty water and clean water, they're going to choose the clean water. And I think this is the primary reason why third party candidates are kept out of the debates. Because if people were to hear these ideas, they would resonate with them immediately because these are common sense ideas. But what the capitalist class would prefer, what the billionaires would prefer, what these criminals would prefer is for us to be choosing between purple, dirty colored water and red, dirty colored water, right? Like they're purple colored, dirty water. They don't want you to actually understand that you could have clear water. They don't want you to understand that you could actually have a actual system of governance that does not co-sign and require and run off of genocide. They don't want you to understand that you could actually live in a world where the destruction of our livable environment is not a constant drumbeat in the background of every action that you're doing. You're celebrating your birthday. In the background, there's forest fires burning to degrees that we haven't seen in recorded history. They want you to normalize that, and they need to limit the ability for you to think about anything beyond that. They have to narrow the scope into the smallest possible structure for you to not understand that you could have so much more. And that's why this moment is so important, because we're in a moment where, as was mentioned earlier, millions of people are waking up and opening up to the idea of socialism. There would be no reason for the Democrats, 86 of them, to vote to condemn the horrors of socialism if it wasn't a threat. There would be no need for Marco Rubio to engage in this, this smear campaign against the people that were standing in solidarity with Cuba if socialism wasn't a threat to the billionaires, right? And just like the the entire weight of the US empire is bearing down on the people of Venezuela, is bearing down on the people of Cuba, that is a further affirmation of the justness and the correctness of socialism as a structure, because you don't attack a system that is not a threat to you. If it does not pose a threat to you, there would be no reason to put millions and millions of dollars in military weapons, billions of dollars in ideological smear campaigns to plant the seeds of doubt and distrust in our minds about socialism and socialist projects. You wouldn't have the need to do that if there was no threat. If they did not cause you a threat, they would. There's a lot of people that weren't on the list. I'm gonna say that. There's a lot of people that weren't on that list. And the people that were on the list were targeted because in some way or shape or form, they supported the righteous struggles of the people of Cuba, which is a people's struggle for self-determination. Socialism is an extension of that. And we, in our spaces, in our communities where we live, have the opportunity to put that up on the stage. And now, if you put any socialist that is a true socialist on stage to articulate socialist solutions to the capitalist problems, neither member of the Democrats or the Republicans would be able to foreground a solution or response that could supersede what the people's movement and the people's solutions would be. So they fear us because they know that socialism is a solution. Socialism is the answer. And we should be proud to call ourselves socialists. And we should say that openly because we know that we're on the right side of history. We've already chosen socialism. We want the rest of the people to divest from barbarism and invest instead in themselves and in their communities and in the planets and in the future for our children and the generations to come after us. And that comes from building socialism in real time, in a living, breathing way that is relatable to the people, that is actionable to the people, and not simply something that is used as a talking point to gain attention and notoriety in a moment where socialism is something that the people want. We got to be real about it. You got to be a real socialist. Don't play around with it.
Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. And, I've been thinking a lot about the opportunity that this debate poses for our movement. And it's made me think about a volunteer meeting that we had a couple months ago, where it was probably 50 or so people in the room. And, I like to have engagement, interactivity when I'm speaking, ask people to shout things out, raise their hands. So I asked people to raise their hand if they were a millionaire, because I was kind of showing the the drastic difference between $1 billion and $1 million, but the fact that most people have never even seen $1 million. And so I asked people to raise their hands, expected nobody to raise their hand. Actually, one person did raise their hand. And then she shouted, like, people were like, oh, like kind of whispering, shocked that there's a millionaire in our midst. But then she was like, no, I'm retired. I've worked my whole life. It's not like she was a multimillionaire. She had some savings, probably owned her house, etc. And I was talking with her a little bit later when we were in small group discussion, and she was very, very skeptical of what we had to say. And I learned actually that the reason she came to the volunteer meeting is because her daughter was very excited about the campaign. And her daughter actually drove an hour and a half from Holyoke in Western Massachusetts to Boston to participate in this volunteer meeting. And so she's grilling me about all these questions about our program, what we believe, why use the word socialism when it's so stigmatized, common questions that I'm sure Andre and Greg and Claudia get all the time on the campaign trail. And answered them as best I could, got to know her, and she ended up going back home at the end of the day. And I kind of assumed that she didn't have a great experience at the volunteer meeting, or left feeling like it was a waste of 3 hours of driving and an hour of meeting in her afternoon. But then we had a town hall in Holyoke maybe a month or two later, and Holyoke is where she and her daughter are from. And her daughter came to the town hall, and her daughter was like, my mom, ever since coming back, she's been raving about your campaign. And, she's part of like the local kind of Democratic committee of their town. And she went back to, all the other older ladies in the Democratic committee and was like, no, like, you guys don't understand, like, socialism is where it's at. Like, this campaign, you need to tap in, you need to pay attention. And this is somebody who was skeptical at the beginning. And I think there are a lot more people across the state of Massachusetts who may be skeptical because maybe they haven't met a socialist, maybe they haven't heard a socialist speak to them. They've only been fed propaganda, but just like her, are receptive to our message once they're able to actually hear it. And then there's millions of people across the state who are excited about socialism, who want to find the socialist movement, but they just haven't been able to be exposed to it yet because the billionaire class, they know how important ideas are. And they spend so much money, an obscene amount of money, to Andre's point, on shaping this idea of common sense in our society. Like, everyone is supposed to know that socialism and communism are the most evil things that the human brain has ever concocted, and that US capitalism is the greatest thing ever created in human history. And even if you don't like US capitalism, well, too bad, because there's no realistic alternative. That's the common sense that's created in our society. And that's a lie. It's a straight up lie. It's a lie that we can't meet people's needs in the richest country in the world. It's definitely a lie that billionaires like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have been able to hoard their obscene amounts of wealth because they're smarter or harder working than the average person. It's a lie that we can't afford universal healthcare when we spend more money on healthcare than any other country in the world, but we're just subsidizing the predatory insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry. It's a lie that spending billions of dollars on a genocide in Gaza and a murderous war in Iran does anything to make our country safer or to make the world safer. And the thing about a lie is that it's a very fragile thing, and it can unravel very quickly. And the corporate media and the two-party system are trying to restrict political debate within a framework that accepts those lies, because they know that once the pot boils over, that our movement can actually speak to what everybody does feel and everybody knows, which is that the economy is not working for regular everyday people, that the quality of life is only getting worse, that we have these major crises in climate change and artificial intelligence under capitalism that the system is providing no solution for. And we have the opportunity through this debate to reach literally millions of households in Massachusetts that are waiting for our message, but who are just not going to find it in the two-party system. And that is a really exciting and enticing possibility to me, because once our movement starts reaching the millions of people, there's no stopping it. There's no stopping it because our movement fundamentally has on our side what the billionaire-backed parties never will, which is the truth, as we've been talking about, and an inextinguishable will to fight for a society that prioritizes people's needs over billionaire profits. And I know that that is something that is going to be very exciting for people, millions of people all across Massachusetts to hear. And I'm very excited to bring that message forward on the debate stage and to smack down all the straw man arguments of the political representatives of the capitalist class.
100%. I want to really quickly say before, yeah, I invite the other panelists to jump in to what Joe said. I want to encourage folks to ask your questions in the Q&A function. I want to say that we are close to raising $1,000 since the start of this webinar. I really want to encourage folks to donate. The link can be dropped in the chat. It's tache4ma.com/donate. If you have a friend, a family member, a coworker who you can get to catch the last few of these questions with our amazing panelists, please let them know. Please donate on that link that just got put into the chat. Yeah, curious if any of our panelists wanna follow up on what Joe said. We also have a couple of questions that have come in from folks. Um, for example, we have one person asks, we have a lot of people who are, maybe excited by seeing, these recent wins by socialist candidates who have won primaries. But how do you talk to those people who maybe don't have hope in a third party effort, who don't have hope in an independent socialist campaign?
Well, I could jump. I could could try. I think it's important. I mean, this question of viability, right? Like we need to start asking people who taught you what's viable. The people who have told us what is viable are the same people who have decided to bomb children in Gaza. The same people who are starving people in Cuba. The same people who decided to kidnap a sitting president in Venezuela. These are the same people who are cutting our access to healthcare. These are the same people that are rolling back our civil rights that they didn't grant us out of the benevolence of their hearts, rights that we fought for, that our people died for. And we have to be really clear. Our ancestors did not simply die and fight for the right to vote. They actually died and fought and were, hosed down for the right to live. And capitalism is literally taking away our right to live. And so when we're thinking about what is viable is what we're willing to fight for. It is limitless. They cannot, like, what is viable is not cannot be constricted to the systems and the structures that are there precisely to kill us. And so, who told us what viability is? The same people that are attempting to limit our capacity to choose for ourselves, to limit our capacity to build the future and the present that we so rightfully deserve. And I think it's important for us to understand that. We might think that the immediate is the higher stake, but actually what we're fighting for is of higher stakes. Because I believe and I know, and we shouldn't in any way, shape, or form judge people for wanting to stop, ICE, for example, just to give an example. But ICE is not a creation of Trump. ICE is a creation of actually Democrats and has been taken up and financed by both Democrats and Republicans. So having a Democrat come after Trump does not mean that everything that Trump has done in any way, shape, or form is going to be better. In fact, Trump is shifting the governance of this country, the form of governing in this country, and that is to safeguard capitalism. At the end of the day, Democrats will not, just in the same way that having the House and having the Senate did not do anything to protect, women's rights to choose over their bodies, they're not going to grant us any rights to protect anything else. I strongly believe that we need to come to the to the harsh conclusion, to the harsh reality that Democrats have not done anything for us in the 4 decades they've been battling it out with the Republicans. Because at the end of the day, as Andre mentions, is two evils. And so we need to do better than that. We deserve better than that. And if we don't fight now, what are we leaving for our children? We're leaving more struggle. And so we need to do better in choosing what for ourselves, what type of future we want. And that is obviously what we are attempting to give people as an alternative, and saying that we need to build an independent movement of working class people towards a socialist society and build a party that places people's needs at the center and are fighting for power. We do not want to manage the crises of capitalism. We do not want to live within the constraints of a capitalist system. We don't want to have, we don't want the seat or the political office. We want the political and the economic power.
Can I hop on? Are we still on this question?
Absolutely.
Can I?
Go, yeah.
No, I love everything that Claudia said. We are engaging in an intervention of ideological measures. We first have, they say that, a revolution begins, the first revolution is when you change your mind, right? People have to think of themselves differently. People have to think of themselves differently. Currently, we exist under this mirage of the great man theory, which says that history was happening one way, and then the great man came up and waved the wand and changed history, and now history is better. Abraham Lincoln came, and with his pen, I got a pencil here, but with his pen, he wrote things down on paper, and then people were free. We have to challenge the way that history is taught, because the way history is currently taught demoralizes, demobilizes people, and strips us of our agency. It takes us away from the requirement that each of us has to engage in the struggle that our ancestors, our parents, our forefathers engaged in before us. It says that we have to defer to these other great men. Well, I'm not a great man, so I got to find one of the two great men that are on the ballot, and I'm going to find one of them. We're flipping that entirely. You are the great men and women that you've been waiting for. The workers are the great people that they have been working for. And I want to borrow a quote from one of my teachers, Franz Fanon, right? And I use this quote a lot because it really summarizes the transformation that the working class in this country, in America, has to engage in order for us to be just stewards that deserve to stand on shoulder to shoulder with the peoples of the world, of the global South. Franz Fanon says to educate the masses politically does not mean and cannot mean making a political speech. What it means is to try relentlessly and passionately to teach the masses that everything depends on them. That if we stagnate, it is their responsibility. And that if we go forward, it is due to them too. That there is no such thing as a demiurge. That there is no famous man who will take the responsibility for everything. But that the demiurge is the people themselves, and the magic hands are finally only the hands of the people. When you engage in political struggle, you become magic. When you engage in the transformation of your society, when you take responsibility for the outcomes in your neighborhood, you become powerful. You become a threat to the billionaires that rely on your apathy. We see it all over, especially in the Bronx. We have one of the lowest voter turnouts in the Bronx because so many people have felt left out of this electoral process. They have felt so stripped of their political power. And we have to go to those people and conversation by conversation, moment by moment, interaction by interaction, show them that only they can be the makers of the future that does not yet exist, but needs to exist, by necessity has to exist, and will only exist with their continued dedication, commitment, and participation in that shaping. There's no other alternative. So when I hear about viability, what I'm hearing is someone who is trapped in an older way of thinking that was imposed upon them by the very same people that told you that it was okay for children to go hungry in the same country where one man became a trillionaire. Those are the people who gave you the logic of viability, and you have to abandon that logic. You have to say goodbye to that person and welcome in a new person, a person who is a fighter, a person who has agency, a person who speaks up, a person who engages, a person who sees something wrong and gets involved to do something about it. We need everybody to be proactive and not just vote and get back to work. We need to vote and struggle. We need to work and be in our communities to be the ones that are actually making a world safer, a world healthier, and a world freer that we all deserve. It can't be up to anybody else. So anybody that's still trapped into that, we can hold your hand, we can walk you through it, but you can't be that person tomorrow. You can't be that person that week because we need a new version of you, a version of you that is going to be able to fight for the things that you deserve and the things that the people who never even got to meet you but are victim to the policies that are done on your behalf. You need to fight for those people as well, even if you never meet them. So the viability comes from what we're going to make it, right? It will be what we make it, and we're going to make it great, and we already are.
Well, let me just add for 30 seconds. Joe is that fighter. Joe is that fighter. And we need people that can awaken the consciousness of people and give them the courage to actually have an analysis of what's happening out in the world. Most political speech is so crazy because it just doesn't address all of the carnage that's around. It's just like a lot of delusional happy talk, and people are talking about like respectability when the empire is burning. The planet is burning. The woods are on fire. No one can breathe. And people are talking about these semantics. So we need, when people hear that fighting analysis that actually deals with the material world that we know at the scale that is necessary, they'll find that Joe is alone on that stage speaking to the world that actually exists. So, hey, fight, Joe.
Yes, sir. When I heard that word a lot too, viability, I saw a comment in the chat. One of our mass volunteers sent me in. Working within one of the two genocidal imperialist billionaire parties isn't viable. I mean, I think that's 100% right. Capitalism is not viable. I mean, look at what we're living through right now. Greg mentioned the wildfires that are burning the planet from Europe to Canada. We were going outside in Massachusetts the other week, and it looks like Mount Vesuvius is erupting. Like the sky is orange, the smoke is everywhere, and you're just supposed to go about your day-to-day life when the earth is literally on fire. And that fire is a symptom of the fact that capitalism and these greedy billionaires have been destroying our planet because they're trying to infinitely grow their profits, infinitely extract oil and gas and cut down trees in a world that has finite resources. And those two things cannot be compatible. Infinite profit is not compatible with sustainability and protecting our planet. It's just not. And there's nothing we can do other than uprooting and abolishing the capitalist system. Here in Massachusetts, in the last year, there's 60,000 children who lost access to SNAP. 60,000 children who are getting food taken off their table, taken out of their mouths because of the policies of our federal government, which is what? It's a reverse Robin Hood. It's cutting taxes for the rich and subsidizing it by slashing healthcare and food, and then giving some extra side money, the tune of $70 billion to ICE to terrorize immigrant communities, to shoot and kill and murder people on the street. I mean, it's completely, if you look everywhere across the board, capitalism is not a viable system. I'm 31 years old, and for my entire life, this is a system that has been in decline. And I think Ed Markey, the senator who's the incumbent in this race, is actually such a perfect personification of the status quo of the system, because the man has been in Congress for half a century, since 1976, and he's 80 years old. There's no better encapsulation of the status quo than a politician like that. And he's really, really good at winning elections. He's won a lot of elections over the course of his political career. So you could say, sure, that's a viable politician. But what has he delivered on to actually improve the quality of life of the people of Massachusetts or the rest of the country? Every major thing that he promises or stands on, for example, he's really happy that he wrote the Green New Deal. Well, surely an aide wrote it for him. But beyond that, what is he actually doing? How close are we to implementing the Green New Deal? We're further away now on sustainable climate policies in 2026 than we were in 2019 when the Green New Deal was first introduced. So across the board, we have to understand that this system is completely not viable. And actually, everybody understands that in our day-to-day life. And then the question is, what do we do about that? And if we wait until the moment in which magically there's going to be the opportunity to vote for or support a quote unquote viable third party, it's too late. We're going to be waiting for too long, and the crises of capitalism are going to cost the lives of millions, if not billions of people, and make our planet literally unlivable for humanity. So instead, the task that we have to do right now is stop waiting. And if we understand that the two-party system is a death sentence for people and our planet, then right now, the most important thing we can do is build an alternative path. And that is ultimately the only viable path for us to take. So it's better for me, rather than going down a path that we know is going to lead us off a cliff. So you know the destination, you know you can get to the end of that path, but the end is you falling off a cliff. That's not a desirable path to take. And what we've committed to in the PSL and building these independent socialist campaigns is looking up a very difficult mountain. Yes, it's a very difficult mountain to climb. There's boulders falling down it. There's not a trail that's paved. We're really gonna have to work hard to get up it. But we know that there's like that beautiful view of a society that actually prioritizes the needs of people at the end of it. And yes, it's hard, but difficulty is not the same thing as viability. And we need to do the difficult thing that is ultimately the only thing that is going to lead us to a society that does prioritize our needs and finally takes the power out of the hands of the billionaires.
Thank you all so, so much. It is our hour is up, our hour with our amazing panelists, which is really, really not enough. I'm gonna drop the handles so y'all can follow everybody, Joe, Andre, Claudia, and Greg, on Instagram. Stay in touch with all of their campaigns. I really wanna, stress what Joe just said, that, we can't wait, that we have to have that impatience for a new system, for that better world. Like Andre said, it is up to all of us. The billionaires are scared of us, but they are not gonna, they are not ceding this arena to us. They are not letting us put our narrative forward without a fight. So it is all of us to wage that battle. We have this incredible opportunity that we cannot pass up, to have Joe go toe to toe. And like our panelist said, it's Joe, but it's really, he's bringing all of us with him. And it's not just Markey, it's not just Moulton, whichever one of them he destroys on that debate stage. But it's really our people versus the billionaires. And this is an opportunity that we can all make real. With just now, $68,000 left to raise. Shout out. Can we chip away at that even more? Y'all can see the donate link in the chat. Please send it to your friends, your family, anyone who, is sick and tired of living under billionaire rule, anyone who is tired of this censorship, wants to see, truly a representative of our class on that stage, take our movement to a new level. Please, please let them know. Please stay in touch. And yeah, let's make them debate the movement, everybody. Thank you so much, and we'll see you really soon.